Okay, recording progress. Hey guys, it's Ray here, the gray-haired guy in a gi. I have one of the most special guests I'm going to interview today, and I know he doesn't want me to say that, but Chuck Sproul, is that how you pronounce your last name?
Raul, that's correct.
Okay, and it's again, it's an absolute honor for me as a martial artist. I've been training since 75, but I've been just doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu recently, and it's an honor to speak with you, sir. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. I appreciate
Good.
it. So
Excellent. Excellent. I wasn't sure. So yeah, I gotta slow down. I got so many questions for you.
just relax. This is all good.
Okay. You
It's
have
like
time?
jujitsu. Take your time,
All
right?
right.
Just
I
take your
appreciate I
time.
got my coffee here. Good old
Me
Tim's.
too. Yeah, I made mine, but we're good.
Okay, perfect. So anyway, how are you? We've never met before, and I don't know, like I know your name a little bit. You probably don't know me, and that's okay. But I love history of martial arts. I love history of martial arts in Nova Scotia. I've been following it my whole life, and your name has come up in through me speaking so many times, but I know very little info, and I don't need to know anything personal. I just want to talk to you about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and whatever you feel comfortable saying, and you're open to it's your go. So you live in Truro, correct?
I do.
And that's your life. You've been there?
Well, I was born and raised in Truro and went to St. FX University and took business administration there because my family had a lumber business. So I
Okay.
was probably being groomed for that.
Okay.
And shortly after graduation, I moved to Houston, Texas for
Oh,
about
wow.
3 years. Yeah, no, it was a whole different stage of life and some great opportunities and a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
then my father's health was starting to fail, and he said that he either has to sell the business or I'd come home. And so I came home,
Okay.
and about a year and a half later, he passed away.
Hmm.
And I suppose, other than it does need to be a little bit personal, right, to discuss because without the series of events, tragic for me, I would trade all the things I've done between then and now to have him back. But that wasn't I wasn't given that opportunity or choice. But it certainly set up how Brazilian Jiu Jitsu came to be here
Hmm.
because I was thrust into the owner's chair not quite prepared and had some great people around me at a great time as a commodities market goes. Things can be terrible or things can be just in the middle or it can be a real booming time. And lucky for me, it was that kind of time.
Sure.
So it afforded me to make lots of mistakes, just
Yeah.
like jiu-jitsu, just lots of mistakes, lots of tapping and lots of things in order to get good. You've got to go through those kind of things. And so I was able to do some traveling and able to put myself in positions and open things up that otherwise would never have happened.
Okay. So we'll try to go maybe. Usually, I ask people, "What are you up to now?" But we'll get to that. We're going to go backwards and start. Were you always involved? Were you in martial arts when you were younger? Before, obviously, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, or like, were you a
Yeah,
kung fu guy or anything? Or
no, I grew up in the era of Bruce Lee
yeah, me too.
and Chuck Norris, and so um, I think I started off in Shotokan karate when I was a kid. I bought all the Wing Chun Bruce Lee books through
Nice,
mail
me
order,
too.
the back of the black belt magazines that you'd send your money in and they'd arrive. And so I did all that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
somewhat self-taught. Bruce wasn't around in order to give me any, hands-on stuff. So
of course.
he did that, and then, other things happened in life and I moved on. And it wasn't until I saw the first UFC, a friend of mine said, "You've got to see this. You've got
Yes.
to see this guy. He's 6 feet tall and about 170 pounds, and he's tapping these people out. They're giving up. You don't even know what's going on. He wraps around them like a snake. He didn't hit one of them. I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so I rented it sort of across the street from where the eventually the school would be, and watched it and couldn't believe my eyes. Like it's just one of those moments that you identify even when I took karate and did all that stuff, I never would enjoy hitting anyone. It just wasn't in me. I could never be one of these MMA fighters today, where you're mixing everything up. But
Sure.
now, jujitsu was different. And when they asked Hoist, some of these words resonate way back, where they said, what was your strategy going into the fight? And I don't want to get hit. Like,
Yeah,
okay, I
exactly.
get that. Like famous, but to some they might laugh, and to me that just spoke really deeply. I don't want to get hit. Like I don't. Some guys love to get in the middle of that, and I've met many along the way. Congratulations to them. They're tough guys. I don't think I was, and so this was a miracle that I could use my head and play this like a chess match and wrap around somebody and just hold them in place at least, and or just let them give up, or So I was immediately intrigued.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember UFC one for sure, and we were fortunate to have. I brought Hoist Gracie here twice, and he was here before as well. And so, I mean, we'll talk later. There's been so many, obviously, Gracies and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people that have been to Nova Scotia, but
Yep.
we don't want to get too far ahead. But yes, I understand. I mean, I've been doing martial arts my whole life too. And I remember UFC one, it was just amazing. And, I was a Japanese jiu-jitsu guy, and I'm like, this is a
Right.
jiu-jitsu guy. But obviously Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but
A little different.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so yeah, it changed the world. There's no question.
Sure did.
Yeah. So you were in Truro, you saw this tape, and then you
All this
decided,
tape, this took place, I would say, early 1994.
okay.
All right. And a friend of mine, I'm sure you have to know the name. He's much better than me, but he started Chris Hughes.
Okay, I've heard that name many
All
times.
right.
Yes.
So as our chat and story unfolds, you'll see where he comes into this mix. He was a friend of mine at the time. He by background was a karate black belt,
Okay.
and a very capable guy, humble, but he just was really, some guys you just know are talented and they just pick up on it just like that. Guys like me need to be very technical and go over things and study them, and guys like him have this instinct where it just kind of falls into place. I've met a few along the way, but he certainly had a lot of talent. So I ordered the VHS copies of Gracie Jiu Jitsu from the
The
Gracie Academy.
inaction ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were awesome.
So he and I, on in my house on a pine floor, started to practice some of the basic moves, which we've all seen if you've been exposed to it from the beginning. It's all the same little curriculum going forward.
Hmm.
Everything from how to pass the guard and your first lapel choke and all kinds of neat stuff.
Yeah. Back then, it was all about get them to turn over and take their back.
That's right. That's right. And some neat guard work that, we hadn't been exposed to. It was okay to be on your back and on the bottom. And so once we watched Hoist do that and tap Dan Severn with a triangle choke, it just
Oh, he's
opened
yeah.
up the
I
world.
trained with him too, Dan Severn. That's another crazy
Nice.
story.
So it was probably, I'd say, a year later, right, when we saw the Gracie Cruise.
I
That
saw
was
those in Black Belt magazine. That's probably where you saw it.
probably where I saw it. I was
Because I
certainly,
used to read those magazines religiously.
oh, we had,
Yeah.
yeah. So I would have seen that and called up or did whatever and signed myself and Chris up. We took our better halves with us at the time and went on a 3-day cruise out of Torrance, California to Ensenada, Mexico, where we had 15 hours with Hoist and Horion.
Ah,
Pretty neat. Pretty neat.
yeah.
You had to stand there. And I, back then, of course, I had been just come off my little bodybuilding career. I was
Okay.
totally into that. So I was a slight bit bigger than I am today.
Yeah. No, understandable.
So I was a pretty solid guy, and I thought, there's no way this guy. I mean, I know he's great, but if I get a hold of him and hold him, and like, I really needed that humbling experience on the mat with Hoist when when I'm thinking I'm scared to death, and I'm holding and I'm strong, and he still just so easily just has me fall over and and then give up just like nothing. It really was magical to feel from somebody like him in the very beginning when you thought, all right, it's my strength. I'll be able to hold on at least a little bit, and not at all. It reminds me of when got a lot more accomplished Chuck Norris went
Yeah.
thought he could hang on with Hickson for a little
Yeah,
while until he was
exactly.
unconscious, and then about the same kind of reaction. You can, it's a defining moment in life. You can take that as and let your ego get up and think that they got lucky or that'll never, or you can say, okay, that's it. I'm wide open. There's a whole lot of things I sure don't know that I really do want to, and here we go. And
Right.
so being far away after that cruise ended, and it was great except for the seasickness and stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, no, it really, that part wasn't great, but to be around those guys, and I remember asking the question. This is a big step. Um, I said, "How on earth do I learn this? Like you're
right.
here in
Because you were a white
California,
belt, basically,
and, I,
right?
and I'm the heck. I'm back here looking at tapes in Nova Scotia, Canada." And Hordion said to me, he said, "Well, cousin Henzo just moved to New York, and he has a partner there by the name of Craig Kukuk, and they're opening up a school."
Yes, I know that history.
Right. So I would have been the first from around here to go there.
Right.
All right. So I flew home. Chris and I flew home because of my position at the lumber business. I could
Yeah.
take some breaks while people who knew what they were doing could continue to run things. And, it was sort of turnkey in those days. And I took off to New York City for a week.
Wow.
I'd made the call, stayed in the hotel, and set up private lessons with Henzo Gracie.
Wow. That can't even imagine what that back in that time, because as you know,
Oh,
of
no, look,
course, Henzo
dude,
was just getting going, right?
sure was. And his English wasn't great, but the nicest guy, when they say the nicest guy you'll ever meet, it really is true. Couldn't do enough for you. And so I got to learn. I mean, you think that you're going to go there, and if you and I had a private, you and I would be down on the mats. But Henzo stood, and he had a couple of different students with him for his privates. And you'd go with one of them, and he would stand and offer information and break things down for you and make suggestions along the way, and then teach. But you'd be with the student mostly.
Right.
He would throw in a little in the end just for fun. I remember Henzo's idea of fun was to tell you how he was going to tap you and put one arm tucked into his belt behind his back and still do it. Like you knew, he says, your right arm. And you're like, yeah, no way. And then you think you're going to, and look, he just did it every time. And someone's that
That's
great when they can
amazing.
announce what they're going to do and then they still do it. Now, those guys, that students were there, there were three of them that stand out. There was their senior guy at the time, a brown belt by the name of Vinicius Landera, Vinny. And then there was Mitu Ponchul. These guys came right from Rio,
Right.
right from the original on this side, Henzo's side, the Baja de Tijuca, Gracie Baja. That's where they learned. The other Gracies, Hoist and Hordion and Helio, they went off on a different branch, which I'm sure you know. But the original school was still operating, and Carlos Gracie Jr., was the head instructor for everybody.
Oh, okay.
All right, the son of the founder,
Right.
Carlos Sr. Okay,
Yes.
all
Because
right.
he was still alive, obviously.
Who's that?
Carlos Sr. No, I
No,
mean Carlos Gracie Jr.
yeah, he's still
Yes, yes. I
great.
apologize. I screwed up the timeline there. My fault.
No, no. So they came right from there because it was his brother that was Henzo and Half and Hyan's father, but he really wasn't into it that much, and so they trained under Carlinhos at the Gracie Baja, as did all the Machados. Like
Right.
this just you almost need to have your family tree out and see how all this goes on. So when
Wow.
Henzo comes over, he brings some guys over to help him out. And so those two guys right from Rio, and an American guy by the name of Matt Serra
Yeah, who's that guy?
from Long Island, New York.
Yeah, who nobody knew back then, right?
He's only a purple belt, and he'd never fought. Again, I
Wow.
got some memories that you just can't, you'll never be able to duplicate, which is
No,
so
that
cool, right? No one cares, but to know that I lived through that era and was part of
well,
some stuff
there are
is
people that care, and that's why I'm interviewing
fair
you.
enough. Fair enough. I
Hey,
just
is
have
there a
run into.
chance? Is there just a quick question? Is there a way to pull your curtain behind you for a second? Just as bright. If you can't, don't worry about it.
Oh, I got a,
No,
I
I
got
don't want to
a.
interrupt you.
No, I can still move around pretty good, you know.
Just to make it a little bit darker. Oh, that's perfect.
Well, we aim to please.
Thanks, John. Oh, okay, great. Everybody understands. So thanks, guys, for everyone who's watching this video. Thank you,
Oh,
son.
will you look at that?
Oh, look at that guy. Made him get out of his comfy chair. That's all right, everybody. Just stand by. We all understand technical difficulties. Give the sensei a chance here. We got so much to talk about.
None of that sensei stuff.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's just Chuck.
Okay, Chuck.
So when you meet Carlos Gracie Jr. in the original school in Rio de Janeiro, and you're bowing, and he says, "Don't bow. I'm Carlinhos and not Sensei." So there's no way Chuck Sproul is going to be Sensei if
Fair
Carlinhos
enough.
Gracie Jr. is
I mean
just
that out of
Carlos.
so much respect.
No, no. So he's that good a guy. None of this stuff. All right.
That wasn't a cat, was it?
That's a dog licking crazy. All
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
No. So now I would be going to the school in Manhattan. Every 6 weeks, I would go for a week, and I would take copious amounts of notes. I still have books downstairs, where the techniques I learned in that and wrote them down. Came back here, and Chris and we probably recruited another one or two people that were interested at that stage, and we would just practice.
Right.
All right. So now I don't know who the first people were. Never got caught up in that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Like I know that Shane Rice, who I met a couple of times, he was studying under Hickson out in California, and I'm sure.
But you were training before him because he started.
Fair enough, and it does not matter.
I know where Shane started at. He's phenomenal. There's no question.
Yeah, of course, and a nice guy.
Originally started,
and all these trainings are unofficial. They're just a bunch of guys that don't really have many qualifications getting together and practicing. Yeah. So that's great. So I don't know. You'd be better at this as to who was doing what and when. I never focused or cared much about that.
Fair enough.
So I started to go back and forth for a good year. Some of the times I would be with Matt, who again was a purple belt. Mitu was a purple belt. Vinicius was a brown belt. And I brought each one of them here.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
There were three of those guys, those three that I just mentioned, all came up and stayed at my house for a week.
Just name them again one more time. Matt Serra.
So Matt Serra, which you guys would be familiar with.
Yeah.
Mitu, M-I-T-O, Punctual. He now runs Renzo Gracie's Baja School in Rio. He's the head black belt there, and so he's stayed active. Vinicius Landera was the most senior of the students at that time. He's now back. He's fairly high up in the police back in Rio.
Okay.
He was back home as well from New York. He would have been the first guy I brought here. In fact, I probably brought them in order. I probably brought Vinicius here for a week, and we trained. And then Mitu came, and we trained for a week and hung out and talked and this and that. And then Matt came, and his brother Nick came.
Oh yes, that's right.
Now, they've had a division, I understand, years later, but they were. So I'll get to some cool stuff.
What time was that roughly? Do you think
this is probably
even a rough estimate? We all know it's hard to.
96.
96. Okay.
Yeah, all in that year. Probably a lot of things going on. I'm going back and forth. And it was after that Matt said to me, things were picking up. One of the times that I was going down for a private lesson, and I was at Henzo's school. There's another private going on. Actually, Henzo was with David Lee Roth. He's in there same time. Yeah, kind of cool. You'd see people that became more notable. It was starting to catch on. Some celebrities joining in there, which was kind of neat. So Matt says to me, he says, Chuck, you're spending a fortune. You're staying in hotels and you're going into the city. Um, if you want to just pay for your privates, you can just come see me over in Long Island. So Matt and Nick were there, and Nick had a twin brother, Damien, at the time, still does. And over at the house, the mother and the father, they were just the most interesting and unique family you could ever imagine. They were just,
Wow.
they were so into just the mother used to be up at midnight because Matt would go over, took me over to Ray Longo, which of course he's
Oh,
still
yes. Yeah.
absolutely going. I mean, my God, you know. So he used to go train at Ray Longo's, and we'd go over there at 11 at night and get home at 1. And the mother would be up and cook us all pancakes and bacon
Oh,
at 1 in the
wow.
morning. And so that's the same time that Ricardo Almeida, Cachorro, was there hanging out, and there was 2 other Brazilians around at the time. So these guys, before they ever made a name for themselves anywhere, were all in this little clique over in Long Island training, which was really neat. And so I've been over to Ray Longo's, and I would sleep on the floor upstairs in their house, like on a mat. We'd be drilling for hours, you know, with Matt and with Nick, and so I tried to learn some stuff and get a little better, you know, come back home, still do the same thing. And that went on for, oh God, I'd say 8 months going over there. I probably went over
Yeah.
4 times and stayed at his house.
Wow.
And in fact, it was the first time that the state of New York allowed an exhibition, that's what it was called, at the Nassau Coliseum where the Islanders play.
Okay.
They had an intermission grappling versus boxing for the first time. It was sanctioned, it was allowed, and Matt fought his first amateur fight. And
Wow.
I went with and went down in the corner with Nick on his very first fight.
Jeez.
Walking down, you know, we're right there in the corner. Somewhere I bet I still have the shirt because
Wow.
yeah, no, Henzo was there, Nick and me, and walking him down, and you know, everybody around really wasn't familiar. They thought this fairly notable boxer was just gonna do a number on him, and it was about a minute and 10 seconds in, and Matt had him choked out. Like, and so
Wow.
there we go. Like it, so to be there for Matt Serra's very first exhibition to fight before he ever, yeah, it was. You know, where you're gonna do that again?
No,
And it
100%.
was the coolest thing.
There's no question about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So then go back and celebrate, and yeah, really cool stuff. And then wouldn't be long after that again, my friend Mitu, who had already been here, I would have made another trip into Manhattan, see Henzo, and he says, Chuck, you should consider opening a school. I'm like, opening a school? What business do I have opening a school? Like, I'm a blue belt. Like, what are you talking about? He says, no. He says, I'll take you to Rio and you can meet our master, Carlinhos. I'm like,
Wow.
what? He says, yeah, my girlfriend and I are going back home. Why don't you come to Rio? Stay with my mother and me and meet him and discuss it. I'm like, I'm in.
And
So
to be
I
fair, I don't think there's any Canadian that was doing that.
I don't know.
No. Like, let's just be honest. I don't think there was any
You know
Canadian.
what? It's not. I don't. Probably comes off as humble, but it really didn't matter.
No, of course.
Not living their lives, and they're not living mine. I'm
Yeah.
just amazed that these things are unfolding and these opportunities are there.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
the next thing
yeah.
I know, I'm flying up, and then we're flying to Rio. I remember uh, I couldn't believe it. I had done a fair bit of traveling in my days, been around a lot of places, but never been on a smoking airline where it cut off. The seat ahead of me was smoking,
Oh,
and
I
then
remember those
mine
as
was
a
supposed to be
child.
non-smoking.
Yeah.
9.5 hours, and I'm right next to the smoking section, and I'm yeah. So there wasn't a lot of sleep to be had on that red eye over to Rio. So no, I remember arriving there.
How
And
old were you would have been? Because I mean, I never asked you your age. I'm 56, but I
I'm
mean, you know.
57.
Oh, okay, then all right. So we're around the same. That's perfect.
And I
Okay.
would be at that stage
Probably in your
27, 28.
oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, cool.
No, I would be 28, 29. Sorry, at that stage.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's great.
Yeah, we're getting into the 1997 part, 98 part right
Oh,
there.
it's getting good.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the timeline when Carlos came to live with me.
Right.
That's where the
Oh
opportunity.
man, that's all.
So all the
That's a
other
whole different
stuff is
podcast.
the other stuff is cool, but
Okay.
there's nothing. That's like growing up. I'd seen the Karate Kid 17 times.
Yeah.
Something just spoke to me, and I think everybody wanted their Miyagi. Carlinhos was my Miyagi.
Oh
He
yeah.
came and lived here, and we sat and watched fights and lived and talked and everything. Like, and I learned more in that month than I probably have in the subsequent 30 years before and
Right.
after that.
And that's
Because
and the name, the way you're saying it, obviously is the correct pronunciation. But most Westerners, would they say, how would they would just say Carlos Gracie Jr.? Is that
no, they'd say Carlinos. They probably
okay?
wouldn't Nia part, but it doesn't really matter. I'm probably still bastardizing it.
Right. Gracie
But
Jr.
Carlos Gracie Jr.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm just trying to keep it straight in my head. So
So
you went to Brazil.
I went to Rio. And
Whoa.
thank God, I was escorted in by Mitu, who took me to the original academy. And when I walked in, everybody, and there is a who's who of jujitsu royalty there that I wouldn't have been aware of then, but names that have gone through the world, you know, um, Gordo and Holeta. Like, there's just so many notable jujitsu champions there. Um, and I walk in and they kind of stop and look and unbeknownst to me, like it just I might as well have a sign that says gringo. And they do not welcome, from my understanding, very well. So if I had gotten in there and started training, one of them would have broke my arm.
Oh yeah.
So I was told that. Not beforehand. And so my friend Mito at the time, they're all looking at me and I'm like, oh, like I'm in the wrong place. They're not looking very friendly. They're not so. And he starts speaking Portuguese, blah, 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 Hanzo, and they go, Henzo.
Uh,
So he told them I trained at Henzo's, and they come over and started giving me hugs, and they couldn't be a nicer batch of people. So
wow.
instantly, because
Yeah.
Henzo would be the
They
king
thought
of
you were
it.
probably there to challenge them or something.
Anything, or just some foreigner wanting to learn, like it didn't matter. But once I came in on Henzo's shirt tails, I was instantly accepted in royalty, and those mats were made of canvas. None of this stuff here where we have these. No, you came out with burns and losing a bunch of skin, and yeah. So I went there for a couple of weeks and met a few times with Carlinhos at his house. They also were. He had an office there too because they were running Gracie Mag at the time. Still, I think it still
Oh
runs.
yeah, I remember that magazine.
Yeah, it's still going. And so he had all these duties, and so we would talk about that. And he's the neatest guy. He'd sit there and talk about his dreams and his visions. I one day envisioned like this is a tree, and I'll have schools. There'll be branches off the tree, and each one will have a small amount of money coming this way. It was interesting to see that he had that vision. There were none other than that one there that he had.
Wow.
And so when he's talking to me, it was going to be the very first outside of Baja. There are
Wow.
over 500 of those nowadays. So he's here in my living room in 1999 talking about this dream. This is going to be the first, and then, and it just
This is
steamrolls from
before he
there.
had any schools outside of Brazil.
That's right. It was the first.
That's just for a martial artist, that's just completely mind blowing.
And
Like,
there, and in the Gracie Baja there, he had the big Tasmanian devil, the Disney figure, on the wall in the triangle, the Gracie Triangle. Illegally, I'm sure. I'm sure there's been trademark issues. But when he came here, we put it on the wall at the building here in the school. So
Right.
we eventually painted over it. He's now Red Shield, and like that's changed
Yeah,
its
yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
But
it's
it wasn't. It was the Tasmanian devil
sure.
look,
I mean, I
and I
looked at
bought.
their website there last night, and I mean, they're so, besides huge, they have so many different ways now through the internet and social media and affiliate schools and
That's right.
affiliate. And it's just, I mean, you're
But
old
everything
school.
changed. Like
Yeah,
what I learned is not what anyone's doing today
of
anymore.
course.
We learned you just set foot out in Brazil, and the advice they gave me, we went all over the place, is that listen, just don't don't have any arrogance, and if you bump into a little guy, and don't be apologetic, or because you don't know who's a black belt and who's not, and they're gonna clean you. Like just be nice to everyone because you
Right.
just don't know. Like it's a culture there, which I'm sure is like soccer is, and like it's unbelievable. And so be very mindful and respectful.
Of
So
course.
I certainly was and appreciative of all that, and met with Carlos a number of times, and I came home and went back again, did the whole same thing again, and we arranged for him. This is in 1999, after going through all the discussions and back and forth, and just experience for me training at that stage and meeting some people, to come back here. He was going to come for 5 weeks.
Wow.
I know, to be
I was
away from
running a
his
school
people
then. Why didn't
and
I
his
actually know about
family,
this?
and he's gonna come and live with me, and he's gonna bring his one of his number one students, Marcio Fetosa, Marcinho, who is multiple world champion. Yeah, so he brought him, and Marcio was to remain with me for another 2 months after that.
Jeez.
All right, so they had a plan. So they arrive, and that's when all the learning begins.
Of course.
So,
Yeah.
so I've learned nothing but techniques and things along the way. You go and you learn in your private lessons from Henzo, and you learn the techniques and you copy them down. You come home and you practice. I learned about jujitsu when Carlos came, which he got to sit down and explain to me that how they were taught and how they grew up, that it was a way of life much more than what you'd see on the mat. Life is throws a lot of things at you, and if you meet it always head on and crash, you'll burn out and you'll wear out. You have to learn when to go with, and you know exactly how that is for technique. Someone's pushing and strong, you don't try to be strong back. You just kind of relax and flow, and then once that
Yeah.
stops, now you go and you do something. And he was really big on the whole of jiu-jitsu, and of course his father, Carlos Gracie Sr., was the inventor of the Gracie diet. He is
Yes.
the pioneer that worked with surgeons and doctors and medical staff to develop this, that all of the Gracies at the time followed. They said that they had gone through everything so they would be in the best shape and could defend their honor and their family. And so he has that as a strong part of his life as well. And so it wasn't just your time on the mat, it was your sleeping, it was your yeah. There's some things I don't think I can say
Sure. Of
here,
course.
some of the funny habits and stuff that I think I don't want to ever think things would be embarrassing for those guys, but some of the funniest, coolest things. But we used to go down to Pete's Frutique, when it operated in the Bedford, in there, and come back with cases of papaya. I
Wow.
mean, cases of it. That God, I spent more on papaya than I did on airline tickets, I'm
I'm
sure.
probably now gonna never forgive myself because I was running a school at that time in Halifax, though I wasn't doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was very invested in submission grappling based on the Inosanto Academy and stuff, because that's kind of my past lineage, Dan Inosanto and submission grappling
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Japan and stuff, and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, of course. But I always had a love for all martial arts. But to know, like, obviously there wasn't social media, not really internet. It wasn't like
Right.
you were posting anywhere that you were. I had no idea, or else, man, oh man, I would have found some way to be there. I'm just like, wow, crazy,
Yeah. Well, it
amazing.
really wasn't open at that stage, but I can
Yes.
appreciate what you're saying. So I'm just hanging with these guys, and we're setting up a curriculum. We're going to open up a school. We're going to do a seminar first. I had acquired in 97 a great big building in the center of town in Truro. I still own that building. And that's where I had a big 2,000 square foot space. We put in some metal railings. It was all fully matted and 15-foot ceilings. And that was going to be the original school. Painted the decal on the wall. I did all that
Yeah, I remember that. I remember hearing about that through the community.
before Cardenas arrived. It was all ready. And that was really the only thing going on in that building. I had an office that I put upstairs from that. And, uh, so they arrive. We start getting sort of a routine down. These guys love Swiss Chalet. Every day for lunch, we'd go to Swiss Chalet and have chicken and potato. And anyway, the things you remember. And at night, it would be papaya and apple juice in the blender with a little cream cheese and then raisin bread.
Wow.
Just
So if you
some of
don't
it.
mind me, I apologize for interrupting you.
No, no, there's no
If
set.
you I'm sure on Zoom I can record for hours because I'm sure we could talk for a long time. Oh my God, I have so many questions. So at that time, I'm sure some people from Truro, but try to get it. Who was showing up to train with you?
All right. I was just, believe it or not, I can talk forever. And I haven't talked about this for so long.
Oh, look, I can listen to you for hours, man. Just
Opening
this is just
seminar, opening day for the seminar. We had some local people, right, just from Truro, because the
yeah,
word hadn't spread much yet.
no experience. They just deciding to try it out.
So a guy that from town here fashioned himself as a pretty rough and tough guy. Gary McKenzie was his name.
I spoke to him the other day.
Did you? Turns a good friend, and he brought his 13 or 14-year-old son, Jake
Oh,
McKenzie.
I know where you're going.
You probably never heard of Jake before.
Oh
But
man. Jeez.
brings Jake in. Jake was shy, and so pivotal moment there. Carlos is sitting there. Marcia Fatoza's there. We're doing seminar stuff. They're using me to demonstrate things as they. And Gary says, "Well, look, if he had a question about something, I think I could get out of that." And he says, "Chuck, over, show us." And Gary struggled. Gary struggled. The next thing, taps, tries it again, taps, and Gary had the wherewithal and vision, like I said, defining moments. Like when I thought I could handle hoist and got just embarrassed, and he thought, no problem, I'll get out of this, and there's no way in heck. He said, I want to sign him up. It's a real deal.
Yep.
And so Quiet Jake came to every class until Marcio left. I'll get down that line. We now have another black belt coming to live with me for a year and a half while he got his MBA down at SMU.
Oh wow.
So, and again, that's why we have the foundation there in the school. That's why it could continue. It wasn't just my interpretation or anything. We had the originals come with the
Yep.
credentials from the school to
Right.
continue this on for, I think it would be a good solid 2 years or more that all of these guys got their base. So it wasn't long after Jake started that a little Halifax contingency started to hear about us. Guys by the name of Peter Martell and Kevin Taylor and Kyle Sanford.
Yeah, I know all those guys. I remember caught. Oh yeah.
Tough as nails. Boy, they were bruisers from the start. I always said, I especially think of Peter, the nicest, most complimentary guy when he was there. But my goodness, he was strong, and he could muscle his way through half the stuff. And so strength did beat technique on a lot of cases.
Right.
And as Peter went along in his career, we learned that strength and technique beat everything because
Right.
he became really, really good.
Yeah.
Right. And he then started to take that gang to Henzo's long after that. But that had been
Right.
once they had come through and got all of the things they could for those 2 years at Gracie Baja here in Truro. It was a lot easier for them to come back and
Yeah,
forth.
for sure, because it's only an hour away for anyone who
Yeah,
doesn't know what we're talking about, and obviously they're trying to learn as well. And Kevin Taylor had a really great taekwondo background, so
right.
he was very involved in martial arts.
So, but before the second guy came for the longer haul, I was telling you that Carlos Cardenas had a plan in mind when he came here, and he brought Fatoza with him. There was they came in, I think, July, and in September,
Of what year, do you know, or does
yeah,
it?
99.
99, right.
Yeah. And so he was here 5 weeks, and Fatoza stayed 3 months because he wanted Marcio to go to the Canadian Jiu-Jitsu Championships in Ottawa in
Okay,
September. Thought that that would be a great stepping stone. We were the first school, and it was already going to be opened.
right.
But if he wanted to get their name on the map, what better way than to show
And do
up
you
there?
think that was more of like just jiu-jitsu championships? Because there used to be sport jiu-jitsu, which was kind of like Japanese jiu-jitsu, but it was a sport version of it. Was
Yeah,
this kind of more, say, Brazilian jiu-jitsu like, or just jiu-jitsu, whoever shows up wants to grapple?
yeah. I think the word had sort of spread quite strongly. There were places up in Ontario that fashioned themselves as more Brazilian jiu-jitsu like,
Right.
and so there was everything that showed
Yeah.
up there. So we've been doing this for a month or two, and Peter and Kevin go up like they're game. We're gonna go. What the heck? We're in for a good party. And Marcio and I went up. So doubling back, I got to be down in my basement. I had a pretty big house back in those days above my stables. They're up at the hill from there where we all lived. And in the basement was all mats and stuff like that. So I got to watch Carlinhos prepare Marcinho for the championships for a
Oh,
month.
wow. Jeez.
So never mind what goes on in schools and in classes.
Yeah.
I'm watching the two of them in complete privacy. Part of it to be sitting down there as he got him ready. Everything from their training, and they stood and from standing stuff and did what looked like people dancing back and forth, push, pull, balance stuff, and like unbelievable things that I
Wow.
got to watch how they prepared for this. Carlos then eventually he went home after his time, and then it was left for Marcinho and I to try to keep on going with that, and I'd help in any way I could. I mean, nowhere near where those guys are, but still unbelievably fun.
Wow.
Yeah. So then we got him a ticket and we flew up to Ottawa. Now they had a ringer come into this tournament at the time. It was all said and done. Like they thought it was all, but just give the guy the medal now. And guy walking around by the name of Rumina Sato, a very well-known Japanese fighter at the
Okay.
time, was making a special appearance. He walked in there like a celebrity. I mean, everybody knew those guys from Sakuraba and Sato. Look, these guys,
Oh, right. I get it.
so they had made their names fighting in Japan, and so oh my God, Ramina Sato. I still remember. I still remember the whole auditorium came to a screeching halt. All these matches going on. Kevin Taylor screamed so loud when Sato got a hold of his ankle that everyone just stopped and looked. And I think he got him good. But yeah, he was by far the favorite, and Carlos waited a little while before he entered Fatoza in. And so we're there in the hotel, and we got two rooms. We have some space and connecting. And I remember we moved all the furniture out of the way in one room, and he put the bedspread on the floor where we would just do some warm up stuff. I help him warm up in the drills, and he'd do his stretches, and yeah, pretty cool stuff. And yeah, I was the dummy, right? I had to get in there, but still, what an opportunity!
Just mind blowing, man. I'm just
And
this
then
whole
we
thing is just blowing my head right apart. Like it's awesome.
then we go to the championships, and as you could just like watching the Karate Kid, as these two advance all the way up through their matches without without any problems. Like Sato on his side and Fatoza on his, all just went through some really cool, just beautiful exhibitions of grappling,
Wow.
and they would meet in the final.
So Man, I don't even know where to keep going here with this. So you guys are all training in Truro, and
Yep.
eventually all these gentlemen head back to where they're from, Brazil or wherever. And
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, so Carlos goes back um, sometime into late August, and Fatoza stays until October, and then and
October of roughly.
no, B99.
That's okay. And again, for everyone to make sure we understand, it's been a long time. So obviously
A
dates
long time.
on
And
mine.
again, I never needed to like. I could look back. I'm
Yeah,
just
no, we understand. It's, I mean, we're
maybe
talking over, way over 30 years ago. So I mean, geez.
we are.
Yeah.
And then the other black belt flies in for November. Marcio Canario, his nickname. They all had nicknames, They all have
Right.
to be called something in Brazil. Saddam, Saddam Hussein. He's Armenian, and anyway, so he comes and he's registered in for SMU to start in the winter time for an MBA program. So I knew I had him for a while, so we were going to get great instruction. And so I think I think before he arrived, I got promoted to purple belt at that stage way back then. And then through him, I got brown before he left, and then finally black many years later. So he comes. The school operates 5 days a week, and I've got guys now coming from all directions. So Jason McKay,
Jason, oh yeah, there's another
Jared
legend.
McIntosh,
Who's that?
Jared McIntosh.
Oh, there's another legend. I'm going to be interviewing
Oh,
him soon
indeed,
too.
started right there.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to
First,
talk to
he
that
was
guy.
a judoka, right? He was a judo guy,
Yeah.
and this was his first experience in our school. And Mike Kitson. So
Oh, that guy is
Mike and I
everybody.
would
That
have
guy is
done
awesome.
Mike and I would have done 30 private lessons over the
Okay.
years.
Because I
He'd have
interviewed him too. He's on the YouTube channel that I have.
nice.
And he gave so much credit to you. And he's just like, they're all amazing people. It's like,
They really are. I mean, how lucky were we when you consider those guys? And they were humble and respectful. You won't find a nicer guy than Mike Kitson. You just
that's
you
what
can
everybody says. And it's true.
try, but I never saw anybody get so excited about learning the technique than Mike. I mean,
Yep.
this is amazing, Chuck. This is incredible. Like, I
And a
was like,
great judo guy too. I mean, obviously. Yeah.
neat. So these guys all came for the majority of the 2 years that Saddam was here. So they got a tremendous foundation underneath. And so, yeah, we carried that on into 2002, probably. And myself and Chris Hughes and Jake was getting better, and
Yeah.
and so we all started to advance. I think at that stage, once Marcio went back, guys like Kevin and Peter and Kyle, they started to do their own versions and start things in Halifax and go to Henzo's, and so they've got all their great experiences and have taken their careers and levels to much
Yeah. You
more
see,
than
I, a lot of people, there's a lot of people. Well, Kevin and Peter had real quick. Kevin and Peter, they've had obviously in Halifax so many students over the years, and they've
sure.
had students that stay with them, students that obviously broke away or left, created their own schools.
Sure.
People in that school have broken away and created their own schools. As I mentioned, back in your day, obviously no black belts, maybe a blue belt. Now we have 102 black belts in Nova Scotia.
Wow.
And when we're done the podcast, I'm going to do 50 push-ups because I have to apologize because I didn't know if you lived in Nova Scotia still or where you were. So obviously we have 103 black belts in Nova Scotia, but
Fair enough. Yeah.
37 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu clubs.
Unbelievable.
It's
Huh?
crazy. Cape Breton is, there's quite a few over there. Anyway, so I want to get off track here. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys in HRM area, they obviously trained under Peter and Kevin and broke away. I mean, that's how Fit Plus started, Halifax
Sure.
BJJ started. My old club, Bushido Kai, we had a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program there under someone from Peter and Kevin. Presley's BJJ. I mean, the list goes on. It's just, and obviously they're traced to them, which now we know kind of works its way back to you as well.
The,
You
the
know,
Gracie Baja School was first generation.
yeah,
Anybody that ever got their foundation here that organically in Nova Scotia came through there.
right. Now there
With
was now again, I'm not on these podcasts or whatever. I'm not saying anything negative. There was a guy in Lower Sackville. You'll know the name Steve Burgess.
yeah, I've heard the
Yeah,
name.
Steve, great guy. He's really high level now. He's got a lot to do with the military and stuff.
I see.
But that's where Shane Rice and Kyle Sanford, he used to be in Lower Sackville, what's called the Downsview Mall.
Okay.
And no, Steve Burgess, I know he probably read this. I've known him for a long time. He's a phenomenal guy, great karate guy. He's one of the nicest people I
Yeah.
ever met. But he was running a school. He called it Guerrero Jiu Jitsu.
Okay.
And but he was doing things by like VHS tape because back in Black Belt magazine you could get a VHS, the patch for your door and learn tapes, and
Or
that's how he was trying to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at that time.
yeah, yeah.
So he started a school in Lower Sackville. I would say maybe 96, 97. I'm not quite sure. And it didn't last very long because then he got transferred in the military. And
Okay.
then he eventually worked his way up. Obviously, back then he wasn't a black belt, that's for sure, and he might not even been a blue belt. He was a black belt in karate,
Sure.
and he was really good in grappling because me and him had a couple matches before. But he eventually became highly accomplished in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and so he's like to this day he's well known in the Ontario, Edmonton, especially in the military section of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for people who train in the military. Steve Burgess is way up there. But when we're going back into history in Halifax, obviously we know, who I'm talking to now, where it started.
And I'll add something because I was a guy that started with tapes. We talked about Chris Hughes and I going through all the different things we can and techniques, but there really is something about the foundation that had been in place for, at that stage, 65 years in Rio. Like that
Right.
family had been practicing forever. And so they had things down, if you will, to a science, in how we warmed up, what drills we practiced, up and down the floor doing the hip escape and, what they now call the shrimp move, but still in those days they had Portuguese names for those. And they
Yep.
had all those kind of things to warm up. And then we went through a specific stretching beforehand that they'd been doing forever and ever and ever. They would teach a couple of techniques in the right way, things that they would show you little nuances that tapes never can. And so I still believe that the basics and the foundation are the most important things to get. They would enhance things to help you learn your balance. I'm still amazed. I'm not involved in it at this stage of the game. It does a lot to the body over the years.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just
Right.
trying to,
So
while you're talking, I'm definitely listening. I'm just looking up something as far as clubs in Nova Scotia. But so you ran your club. When did you decide just to kind of take a break, stop, or you didn't stop, or
well, I did. I had some health issues happen in around 2002,
yeah,
2003, those guys. And Chris Hughes took over teaching there at the school.
okay,
And that went on till, oh, just after 2003. And Hurricane Juan came,
yeah,
lifted my neighbor's roof downtown, an auto parts place, lifted the roof right up and slammed into my building, opened it up to the heavens, and it ruined the school. Like you could see the sky. So everything
wow,
in there. So it was a disaster and a big insurance claim, and it was going to be 6 or 8 months in order for anything to be put back together. It was, as you know, the province suffered millions and millions and millions of dollars in damage from Hurricane Juan back in 2003. And so it was that stage where Chris then took this and opened it up in another spot
right.
and did that for a little while. And then I'm not sure when he stopped it, but then it sort of fell off the radar here. So you wouldn't see it listed anymore. I think he gave that up and
Okay,
moved along. But
okay, I understand. And so, is it fair to say you were like the again, the first black belt?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay, cool. I'm asking.
Yeah, no, fair enough. No, I
I
was
think Peter and
older.
Kevin definitely were the first ones to get their black belt.
I bet that's
Independent.
right. And
Yeah.
and I think not that long after, I know that Chris Hughes was going to California and training with some of the Baja guys out there, and he became a black belt somewhere in the middle there, mid 2005, 2006, somewhere in there.
Did you ever meet Sam Johnston from New Brunswick? Because he was the first black belt in New Brunswick, and he was under Marcus Soares when Marcus Soares started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Vancouver.
I don't think so, but I remember that. I remember when Soares came to Vancouver, and
Yeah,
mine would be
that's New
years
Brunswick
later.
history.
Once I worked around some health things and bounced back again, and so ironically, it was I got it through Chris, who started with me, but I came
Right.
back around again, and finally, I think that was 10 or 12 years ago, or I don't
Is
remember.
that I know you're not really a social media guy, but you do have a picture on what little you have of Facebook. I think it's you and a gentleman. Is that Chris?
Yeah, it sure is.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I'm gonna save that picture for my book that I'm
That's
writing.
where it
So
started. Chris and I and the crews and training together. And if it weren't for having a buddy to train with the tapes, it wouldn't have then led me to the crews. Then it wouldn't allow me to ask about where I could keep learning, and then Henzo's and so on and so forth. So
yeah,
it's funny the things that spark it. But yeah,
yeah,
he and I training together on VHS tapes is the reason why all these guys got their base.
yes. Does he still live in Nova Scotia or did he move
Yeah, I
away?
just saw him yesterday. Told him I was going to be speaking to you about
Well, I'm gonna
funny
be talking,
someone's
Chris. If you're
asking out.
watching this video, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you, Chris.
There's another guy with more talent than, oh man,
Yeah. Well,
he just picked up on it, and man, he would train. He was good. Like he just didn't have to
and then
put
Shane Rice, of course, ended up moving to California.
right.
Yeah, at some point in time, I'm going to reach out to him some. I've known Shane since when he started with Steve Burgess. You know,
Right.
he was very young then, but I know he ended up moving to California and training there, and he became, obviously the first Hickson Gracie black belt in Canada.
Right.
So,
No, he did
he's
tremendously
very
well.
active in New Brunswick now. He lives in New Brunswick, and he has a couple of academies there. So, great
Nice.
guy. So, MMA fighter, former MMA guy too. So. And Kyle Sanford was in MMA. Obviously, Kyle, he's come down and train with you too.
Yep. He came
Yeah.
originally. He was down with Peter and Kevin. The three of them would come.
Okay. Yeah. Because I mean, he's an OG, as we say, or as the kids say. He's
Yeah. Yeah.
oh
There's
man,
another
I just can't think straight
strong
now.
guy.
This is so good. So obviously, you due to health reasons and things you had going on, you kind of just decided to slow down and just do other things.
Again,
And
and then the disaster at the building. I
yeah.
then decided that I was going to rebuild that into apartments upstairs.
Okay.
I certainly didn't pick the disaster. It,
No,
it
probably
still
brings in more money though, having apartments than.
really would. Things. There wasn't the worldwide explosion, and you'd have classes of 6 and 7 people, and that'd be about it. Like the world has really changed as far as population
100%.
goes. You know, so it really was for passion that we were putting this on, not for money.
Right.
We're paying $10 a class or something silly like that. The means didn't justify the ends, but it's still, we just loved to do it. It was just and we did
Yeah.
that for a long time. So in 2004, I rebuilt the place through insurance. Given the
Right.
opportunity, it was now or never where they were going to put it back. So I could put it back any which way I wanted to. So that's when we made the choice to. And then I just went over to Chris's and trained
Okay.
time to time when he took it over to another location, just not far over the tracks on the other side. So I could go there anytime I wanted to train. And
Wow. Wow. So are you doing anything at all? Or are you just kind of chilling now?
well, I'm far from chilling at the.
You know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah.
not
So
traveling the world training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the moment.
no, not at all. So that I had two passions in those days in the mid '90s. Jiu-jitsu was one, and horses were another.
Oh, okay.
I had mentioned that I had moved and lived in Texas for 3 years, and really got a flair for gone to the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. Married a girl from Texas. came back here, bought a horse stables where I had a house built in behind that. And so I split my time between jujitsu and horses and
Wow.
natural horsemanship using like psychology and communication. Amazing how the two were in parallel.
I
You
can
know,
imagine.
you don't you if you think you don't want to be pushing on a guy that's pushing you, you sure don't want to be pushing against a horse pushing against you because they're
Right. That's a,
1,000
I would
pounds.
imagine that's a whole art in itself and a whole way.
Phenomenal. I
Yeah.
probably learned more from horses than people as far as how to when to your timing and yeah, really neat stuff because it really
Wow.
is about moving with the horse and free communication and psychology. It was my other passion. I still have horses to this day.
Okay. I was gonna say, how do you spend your days now? Like,
Well, I had to become a therapist to
okay.
fix all the things that got broken over the years from the weight training for the first half of life and the jujitsu,
Yeah.
because you could imagine starting out that people always panic and use far too much strength at the beginning. And as like the teacher in the very beginning, everybody was a beginner. And so they all wanted to roll and they're all grabbing and twisting and using all their strength. And I had ribs popping out left and right and going to a chiropractor 2 or 3 times a week. And enough was enough after a while. You just got to take a little time. And so uh, I traveled to the States and got some certifications to do some really neat stretching and therapy. And I
Right.
walk on people. I still do that to this day, a few days a week in the same building, but down in the basement part of it. So I
Right.
still have the business out of there. There's apartments on the top, and I still have my horses, and I
Yeah.
spend time with
So
dogs.
obviously you keep real busy.
Yeah, and I was a personal trainer forever, like forever and ever. So I ran a gym upstairs below the jujitsu place, and Jake McKenzie used to come there when he was just young and work out every single day after
Yeah,
school.
so real quick, what do you think of that? I mean, Jake is for obviously anyone watching this knows Jake McKenzie's become the most decorated Canadian jiu-jitsu athlete in history for Canada.
Yep.
And I mean, he got his start with you, and he's lived in Brazil for like 15 years. He speaks
Mm-hmm.
fluent Portuguese. He has a Brazilian wife. He's highly decorated. I think he's a fourth degree now under GFT or GF team.
Huh?
And
Look, I couldn't be more proud.
of course, the guy is
I saw this shy young man come in with no genetic gifts to start for sure. He didn't have a strong athletic base to him, and I've not seen anybody work harder than him.
I
And
agree.
so
Yeah.
it's that spirit that came out inside of him that he just wanted to train every time he could with the guys that I had here, like the
Yeah.
Gracies and Fatoza and Canary, and he just never missed. And then he wanted to come to my gym every day and go in the back corner on the mats and try to get himself in better and better shape.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of that was, on me at the time. You come in here, don't you worry about, and his father rented a place in the building as well for a paintball shop at that stage. So we had a really
Right.
great relationship,
Who,
me and
honestly, as I'm a father, I'm not sure if you are, but as we
no,
know, credit to his dad who gave up his life essentially, like
yeah,
pushed him to keep training. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And I speak to Gary every once in a while on Facebook. He'll have me share something or he'll ask, we'll just chat a little bit.
yeah.
And man, what an awesome guy.
Gary recognized that that
Right.
first that seminar, he recognized something special, and then it opened the doors for Jake. But like you said, to get a foot in the door, like that's a door not many people had an opportunity because here we were in Truro. It was fairly quiet, but they were some of the best in the world. It only takes you so far to get your foot inside the door, like a job opportunity. Somebody, you get the rest has got to be up to you and how
Right.
hard you're willing to work and how bad you want it. And to this day, Jake wanted it more than anyone I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
he showed up in my gym every day and on the mats every night. And he never backed down from anything. It's like he learned a lot from Marcio Fatosa, who was a smaller guy at the stage. He was a lighter guy, 160 pounds, and been tapped 1,000 times from all the big guys at the main school. Until one day, after getting tapped over and over again, you stop getting tapped.
Yeah.
because he's become that good from
Yeah.
all the better guys. And you know what? That became Jake. He saw the perseverance, and Marcia, we told him about that, I'm sure, and he just stuck with it. And then all of a sudden, that guy's not, he's just a phenomenal
Yeah.
athlete.
He has a great school in Halifax now. I've been there once when I interviewed his wife and I did some
Right?
training and just it was what I felt personally because I've trained a bunch of different martial arts schools and BJJ schools, but visiting,
Mm-hmm.
it was like being in Brazil. Like the way he taught, and obviously a lot of people he has there speak Portuguese, and
Sure.
it was a whole different aura to the club. And I mean, it was fantastic. And some people like that. Some people just like walking in, training for 20 minutes, rolling and leaving, and
Right.
but his was just it was really, really good. And we're very fortunate that in Nova Scotia all the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu clubs, no matter how they run or how they teach, they're all excellent. We have such a great community. Now, one or two may not like what the other person's doing or get along, whatever, but everybody's welcoming overall. Everybody can train everywhere and everybody cross trains. So
How great that is.
it is great. So I won't keep you too much longer,
Oh, no.
but now we have to go. Okay, it's 2025.
Yeah.
Do you follow any Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people or you don't bother with it?
Not much.
Okay, because
Well,
obviously it's
I
changed so
never, I
much.
never miss a UFC or anything, and I never
Okay.
have.
Do you know who
Of
Gordon Ryan is?
course.
Okay.
Well, so there, yeah, no, of course, it's the best there is, of course.
Yeah.
They came from John Donaher and down in Hensel's basement. Like
Yeah.
they were practicing there, and I remember rolling with George St. Pierre. That
Yeah.
like there were times there in that era that like all this stuff was
Hey,
still.
George St. Pierre was in Truro once, just so
It
everybody
was.
knows.
I was there.
Ah, there you go. I missed
Yeah,
that seminar. I couldn't believe it.
because we had Henzo's in common, right? So we had
Yeah.
something
So
immediately.
Nova Scotia, besides all the great gentlemen you've had, I
Yeah.
know we've had Hoist Gracie here a couple times. We have had Hoyler Gracie and PEI. We've had Hickson Gracie, obviously Henzo Gracie. I'm
Hmm.
sure I'm missing some people that have, visited, but for our little province in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world, we've had so many great instructors and also other people that have teach as well. But as
Sure.
far as a Gracie name,
Yeah.
what a huge thing for the province. I mean, and what an influence. And I still don't understand. There's people out there that I don't want to go to a seminar. It's like, why would you not go and either meet this person, feel their energy, try to learn something, see their teaching style? I
Sure.
don't know, but so
A lot of those things have changed, to be honest with you. Like
true.
what Hoist does today in his business, is not how it was back in the 90s when you'd go to the schools. Like when Carlos and I'd go to Brazil and he'd be here, and that is not the same thing.
No,
They,
it's different.
the Gracie Baja he had this vision, and you gotta, I give him credit for it. Jiu-jitsu for everyone. They had to make this palatable for everyone, and so it didn't matter that you learned to defend against a knife attack, or it didn't. None of those things, they weren't included in a lot of cases. They needed to make this appealing to everyone, and that's why it became a worldwide phenomenon. And I'm sure he's done extremely well over the
Yeah,
years with all the branches of that tree that he talked about. But it isn't the same thing that I was so fortunate to learn in those
sure.
days
Did he
and
not
how it
create
was taught.
the I'm sorry, did he not create the IBJJF?
Yes, he
Yeah.
sure did. Yep.
So I'm pretty that's yeah. I should know that off by heart, but yes, I'm sure he's the guy that created it.
He
So, but
did.
I mean,
Nope, that's right.
huge, right?
Afterwards.
And that wasn't even around back when you were doing it or when I was
Nope.
earlier in the 90s training. So, I mean, and Brazil now in Halifax, uh, well, in Nova Scotia, we have a lot of tournaments now. Obviously, back in your day, there was none. I remember
That's
me doing one at my old school Bloomfield. We did like a submission grappling tournament back in the early 90s. I think it was like 94 or 93, but we had like 20 people, like mostly just regular judo guys and our Japanese jiu-jitsu guys doing grappling. But so many tournaments now. They're just it's crazy in the Maritimes. Do
Yeah,
you follow or do you bother?
I do not.
Okay, I figured that,
I just
obviously.
it's difficult for me. I certainly am amazed at how people would say that the UFC is completely different now than it used to be when it started, where you saw styles versus
Oh,
styles.
that was the best.
It was so, and now everyone trains in the same manner. It's a hybrid. There's not many like just true jiu-jitsu, and it wouldn't hold anymore. Everyone knows it. So the world has changed. I view it a little bit like that, like it's opened up so much. It really has grown, and the techniques have expanded, and the people are phenomenal. They would wipe the floor with people like from my generation. They've gotten so good and talented and athletic. It's like any sport, really.
Right.
Uh, but I really loved the memories and the things that I learned in those days. And I'm probably stuck in that to think, what? I respect where it's gone, and people are really advancing this, and it's wonderful to have been part of that in the beginning. But I'm not current with it because I still love to live in those times with some of the lessons that were taught that aren't taught anymore. They
Sure.
can't.
The 80s, 90s were still the best.
They were. I
I mean, you can't beat it, right? I mean, even, people in my class today, I'm like, did you know we didn't have water that you bought in a store at one time? Who would have thought bottled water, you make money from it, right? We'd all been rich.
That's right.
But listen, again, I'm going to think of more questions and maybe we'll do a part two down the road.
Anytime. Like it's
I've
nice for me
absorbed
to
so much of
remember
your
back.
time.
It
Pardon
really
me?
is. I said it's nice for me to remember back. I don't have an
It is
opportunity
good. Chuck,
to
it's really
post that.
important. It's important because the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community now, I know how many black belts there is, but
Yeah.
students, there's got to be, 1,000, like, or more. Like
Oh,
Halifax Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Society, which is located on Kent Road in Halifax, they have over 300 students now. They're the largest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club in Atlantic Canada for sure. And now the trend with a lot of schools is morning, noon, and night, 7 days a week. And there are a few schools, very few in the province that can do that, obviously, because people work and all that stuff that
sure.
own their works. But they have, and I'm not just singling them out because all the schools are great. There's no question. Titans, everyone's
Yeah.
awesome. But they just went at the the way they went at it was we're going to have a number of instructors and we're going to offer classes every day, 7 days a week. And they have instructors from Brazil that have moved over, like, black belts. They're just, not that
Sure.
that's, and, but so many great clubs. And I mean, Titans is still around. I mean, oh man, there's so many things that are going on in the community nowadays. And I'd like you to know that obviously it all goes back to you, even if you don't want to say it does. I'm the official historian for martial arts in Nova Scotia, and I say
Don't
it.
get me wrong. I fashion myself more as a liaison than anything else.
Okay,
I
that's
certainly
how I'll
know
word it.
I know my place in this. And so the guys that did come through, I was able to be in the right place at the right time with the right opportunity to set this up where a lot better people than me at jujitsu could come and get a base and then expand this, take that baton and run with it to develop the community that you're now talking about and a big part of. And so I appreciate that without me at that time doing these things and having those experiences. I wouldn't say that people never would have done that because we know how everything has expanded, but they would be
Exactly.
years behind. Like a guy like Jake that was still in school and trained for years here before he even went to Brazil, like he would not have had those opportunities. They wouldn't have. And so he would have been far removed from being where he is. So, if anything, I probably helped speed up a process to make the people that were going to be great and great teachers and great competitors uh, to have their lives and expand on this. So I certainly know my part, but it's not special in the jujitsu world. No one's going to
Oh,
say, it was great, but I mean, I was in the middle of the road guy, right?
right.
I
Yeah,
was
but still, you were the
technical and
first.
yeah, okay. So
Anyway, listen, this is without doubt. and I'm a historian, the most important Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu podcast in Canadian history. Right here with
Uh,
Ray McKinnon, Chuck Sproul.
well, I'm honored to be part of it. It was
I
a
look, you know,
yeah.
anyway, it's so I'm working on, I'd say I'm writing a book. Now, I don't know how well of a book it's going to be, but I am working on a book because I love history, and it's going to be about the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Nova Scotia. I've been researching it for years, and because I've been in the community since like, well, I started teaching in '85, so I've always followed what goes on in the martial arts community in the province, and so I'm working on creating a bunch of like a book of the history. And obviously, I'll reach out to you and other people, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to have just so much history because it's important. And as you know, as time goes by, I mean, there's so many people in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu now in the province that have no idea. Oh, who's Peter and Kevin? Like, there's probably people, young people don't even know their names, right? Let alone maybe you or other people. I mean, on my club, Bushido Kai, actually, we had the first female Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, Courtney Pratt. She came from my club, Bushido Kai.
Wow.
And that was through Max Tromblini from Brazil. We were under him. But so there's so much history. Now she doesn't train anymore neither. She's retired from it.
Mhm.
And obviously there's a lot of women, there's more black belts, but some of them don't even know that history. So I think a book super important. I'm going to do it.
Good for you. That I mean, we have to know the roots, in order
Exactly.
in order to know where you're going, you got to know where we came from. And so
That's right.
it was a special time. It came from tragedy on my end, or I would have just been working as a manager in a lumber yard, and I never would have been able to travel and have the abilities to do so.
Of
It took
course.
a tremendous loss to get there, but look at what I was able to do, and the foundations I was able to offer some of these people, that their lives changed. It isn't about a guy that came and trained for a couple of years. Peter and Kevin have made their livelihoods from this, and trained a lot of great guys. And Jake went on to be the most decorated guy in Canada. Like, a lot of these guys really took this baton and changed the jiu-jitsu landscape, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be part of that in some small way.
100%. So before I stop the recording, just in closing, there was one time back in 2012, I was in a gym in California and I had Judo Gene LaBelle, Benny Urquidez, and Gokor Chavichin, and we were all training together. I was only there for about 5 hours, so they weren't my instructors, but I was there training with them and some students. And it was so emotional for me. I was just overwhelmed by training with those legends. So, with that being said, that's how I feel talking to you, man. I'm just emotional. It's just, this is awesome.
Oh,
Like, no, and I mean that out of full respect. I'm just saying it's just and such an honor to speak with you. And
thank you.
I
Privilege.
love martial arts and I love history. And I'm
Can
just
sense that.
beginner purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but it's so important to me that, so I want to thank you.
You are more than welcome. Really, it's nice to reminisce and bring that back to the forefront again. Those were some great times.
Okay, guys, this is Ray, the gray-haired guy in gi. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to talk to Chuck, and I'll see everybody later. Talk soon.